change direction just a little bit for the next few minutes. And I just want to say that some of the things I'm going to talk about, I'm going to talk to you like I was your mom. Because I have these two children who are also young doctors. And as I tell the stories, you'll sort of see that, you know, I can be telling it to them as well as to you. So I sort of feel like today, you're my kids. And I want to tell you a few things about being doctors in the world and what you can expect. Okay, every story has a beginning. My husband and I, when we were medical students, decided to take an elective in international medicine. And we went to the country of Bolivia, and we got dropped off at a little hospital high on the Altiplano in a little town called Ancoraimis. And as soon as we arrived, the doctor, who had been there for a very long time without a vacation, decided to leave. Now my husband was a senior and I was only in my second year, so we really weren't qualified to take over the hospital. But anyway, we were left with two nurses and ourselves. Within hours of the doctor leaving, a truck drove up, and a patient was unloaded by her husband, a lady who'd been in labor for about 3 days. And so we were already concerned. So we took her into the examining room, which the nurses helped us find because we'd just gotten there. And as we put her on the table and we pulled back the blanket, because it's very cold at that altitude, we were horrified to see a little foot coming out of the vaginal canal. And so we thought, this is a footling breach, and this lady has been in arrested labor for days. We didn't know the whole story because our language was not that good, but we knew she had been in labor for a long time. So we went back to her husband and we said, please take her on to the next bigger hospital where you can have a real doctor. But he said he couldn't go any farther. You know, he borrowed the truck. This was it. This is as far as he could go. So we took a deep breath, and she was having pain, so we gave her a little medicine for her pain. We looked around for an obstetrics book to review what we should do. My husband, I think, had 1 month as a student of obstetrics. Then we went into the corner and we prayed fervently for God's mercy. By the time we got back and he got his hands all scrubbed and ready to go, she started having good contractions. And by God's mercy and grace, she delivered that baby. The baby lived, the mother lived. After 4 months of this kind of medicine, we both knew this is what we wanted to do. We loved it. We could see ourselves just working for the rest of our lives in a country where there wasn't enough health care, but where we could be a part of this solution. And that's how it started. Well, we went back. We finished our residencies in family medicine. At that time, my husband later became an emergency medicine physician, but at that time we did family medicine to get ready to go back to some country somewhere. And we kind of thought it would be South America, not too far from home, small community, not too many patients, something we could handle. But we were asked to go to Bangladesh. Now, all we knew about Bangladesh at that point was they just had a war, they just had a cyclone, there were lots of refugees, there were 71 million people in a very small area. It was as far away from home as we could go, and we would be it. We wouldn't have a senior doctor to really help us know what to do. So we told our organization, maybe not. I don't think we can do this. You know, we're full of adventure and we're young, but this may be more than we can do. But because they had asked, and they were our seniors, we said we would pray about it. So we went home thinking, this is not going to happen. So the prayer we decided to pray was, God, if you really want us to go to Bangladesh, please give us a desire to go to this hot, crowded place. And not only give us a desire to go, but make it the only place that we want to go. So a couple of months passed, and we noticed that things were changing. As we talked with each other, those situations in that country which seemed to be just big obstacles to us at first started to sound like challenges. Like, maybe we could do this. We got some ideas about what we could do. And then one night, we got out of clinic late and we went to a prayer meeting at actually another church, not our own church. And we slipped into the back row and just sat there through the service. But at the end of the service, we both looked at each other and God had spoken to us. And he had spoken in almost the same words to each of us. And he said, this is what we heard in our heart. It wasn't, no one else heard it but us. We heard Jesus saying, come over to Bangladesh. I have my people there, and they have many needs. And all of a sudden, we knew that we weren't being asked to go to a godforsaken place at the end of the world, but we were being asked to go somewhere where Jesus was already working, where God was already caring for people, and that he was just asking us to join him. Now, maybe God spoke so clearly to us because he knew that our time there would not be easy. And when you are asked to do something really difficult, sometimes it's always very helpful if you're sure of your call. Now, I know many of you have been called into medicine, and maybe some of you are feeling like you're in a hard place right now, a long way from home, or just very difficult studies, or other challenges. So I ask you, just when you're feeling that way, just go back and think, why did I want to go into medicine in the first place? Why did I choose to go to Ukraine? And I want you to know that even if you didn't have a voice speaking in your ear telling you to come to this place or to go into medicine, that you're here because the sovereign God of the universe wants you to be here. Amen. You are in the right place, and you can count on that. So we were only asked to go to a country with 71 million people. When you all finish school here, there will be 7 billion people in the world. 7 billion patients. Well, the good news is that means you're never going to be out of work. There will always be somebody at your door, okay? Now, the bad news is that you're going to feel overwhelmed, probably many times in your life, by all those healthcare needs and other needs that are around you. So what do we do when, you've got this whole world in front of you and there's so much you could do? How do you know where to start? Well, what Ted and I did was we'd gone to the country, we'd moved around, we'd taken a little trip around from area to area, trying to figure out where we should start a small health clinic and project. We finally found a very small village, which is unusual in Bangladesh, and decided that that would be the spot. We wanted to start with something very small and then kind of let it grow. And I want to quote one of our professors here, Dr. Tove, and she said yesterday, it's a good idea to start small, to start simply, and to start slowly, and if possible, let the beginning be strategic. So I think that's really, really good advice. So we did start small, but we had a big vision. And I think that's good too. You want a big vision, but you want to start with something that you think you have a good chance of doing. As we looked at the little spot where we were, there was a broken down building that we would repair and put up some thatched clinic areas. But we thought about, we knew there were a lot of people who would be coming because we'd already worked there a little while and knew how many people might show up. So we knew there'd have to be a place for patients, probably hundreds of patients, to wait. So as we set things up, we put the patient waiting area in a little grove of mahogany trees, and we built a whole bunch of latrines and put a pump out for water because it's hot and people can't wait for hours and hours with that kind of problem. And we determined that knowing we were living in an area that was very poverty-stricken, we felt God really wanted us to be sure that every single patient who came through, no matter what their situation in life, we would treat them with dignity and respect. And we planned to deliver the very best possible health care that we could. We worked on the laboratory, we got the best medicines we could find in the country, tried to set everything up to the best of our ability in that area of the world. And those concepts have been really helpful to us everywhere in the world, because when you treat people with dignity and respect, just that by itself is a healing thing. Now, as you go along in your life as doctors, and as we went along in ours, you're going to have a lot of days where it's just kind of humdrum. The patients come, you take care of them, they go. You're loving them, you're giving them the best care you can, but it's not like every day is not something unusual. But then there are those days where something really good happens. And I just remember we had a young man, we had many TB patients, and we had this one young guy with this young family who was all dying from tuberculosis. But he started coming for his treatments, and he came every single week to pick up his medications. He was faithful to do that. And at the end of, I think it took about 12 months for him, he was well. And that was just a glorious day, a quiet victory. Sometimes God just enters into our lives in spectacular ways. A woman was brought in on a stretcher to a clinic we were having in a very remote area. She was young, and she had hadn't eaten anything or had anything to drink for 3 days, according to her family, because she was actually almost comatose. And when they brought her in, again, she was all covered up too, and as we parted the blankets to see what was going on, she was covered with chicken pox. And from the mental exam, the neurologic exam, we figured she had varicella encephalitis, that her brain was infected and inflamed. As we continued our exam, we found to our great disturbance that she was also 4 months pregnant. So not only were we concerned for her in her life, but we were concerned what would happen to the child if she survived. Would the baby suffer damage from this virus? So what did we have to treat her with? IV normal saline, that's all. We didn't have any antiviral medication. Well, I take that back. We had 1 pill of acyclovir oral, which is about nothing, in the case of this. So we did the exam, we started the IV, we gathered the team around her, and we just prayed for God's mercy. Her husband had brought her in. He was totally distraught. After we finished and went back to our other work, one of our nurses, kept watch on her, kept her IV going. Her lips were all cracked. She was, in bad shape, so the nurse just lovingly cleaned her up, washed her wounds, took care of her, got her new blankets. And we just watched her all day, kept giving her fluids. By the second day, she woke up. By the third day, she was sitting up and able to take some fluids on her own. To us, that was God's grace. That doesn't happen so fast in my experience in the United States, that she would turn around so quickly. And the end of the story is even better. We had to leave that village as she was improving, but we came back a year later, and she had a baby, and the baby was fine. And we've seen her now for several years. The little girl's about 5 years old now, and no mental problems, no physical problems, and Mom is doing well. So, good story. But sometimes it doesn't turn out that way. We had another